When someone has a brain injury, it affects the entire family. And today we have Lindy Boone Michaelis back here on the podcast to share about her family's journey after her son's traumatic brain injury and hope for families that are going through this. This is an encouraging, uplifting, compassionate conversation, and I'm so thrilled that Lindy came back on the show. There is always hope, and you are not alone. Hi, I'm Cristabelle Braden, and this is my brain injury podcast, Hope Survives. This is an uplifting podcast to bring hope to your darkest days. As a survivor of traumatic brain injury and multiple concussions and re-injuries, I know what it's like to struggle to find hope. I don't want anyone to feel as alone as I did, and that's why over 10 years ago, I started an online community called Hope After Head Injury, which has now launched into a nonprofit organization called Hope Survives. Hope Survives envisions a world in which every survivor of brain injury and every member of their family are seen, loved, heard, valued, supported, uplifted, and never alone. This podcast is an extension of that, and I'd love to invite you to join along as we explore the realities of life with brain injury, with messages of encouragement, interviews with doctors and professionals, and survivor and family stories. No matter where you're at on your journey, there is always hope. With a little hope, you can make it through today. With a little faith, someday you'll get through the pain. Just a little love is enough to light the way through your darkest night. Hope survives. A little faith, a little love. Hope survives. Hey friends, welcome back to Hope Survives podcast. It is so good to have you here, and thank you for choosing to listen. It is just an honor to be able to share hope about brain injury, and every day I'm so thankful and just so thrilled and just so full of joy and peace to be able to be part of Hope Survives. I know that might sound silly as I'm the founder of Hope Survives, but it's not just me anymore. When I first started this podcast, it was just me by myself. And now we have a team, and it's been so wonderful to be able to come together as a community to bring hope. A big part of our mission and our mission statement is families. And when I spent years working towards the founding of this nonprofit, and one of the things that I kept coming back to in prayer and I kept coming back to over and over again was the importance of the entire family's journey. Brain injury doesn't just affect the person that's injured, it affects every member of the family, not just the primary caregiver, but the siblings, the parents, the spouse, wherever the person's at in their life. It affects everyone. And today we are going to be talking about hope for families. I'm so excited we have Lindy Boone Michaelis back here on the podcast again. If you listened to what season are we on? I can't remember what season we're on. Last season, if you listened to last season, I think it was season 3. Lindy was on the podcast sharing a bit of her family's journey with brain injury and about her song called Word Layer, and talks about the importance of speaking life and our words through a journey with brain injury. Today, we're back with a different conversation, and I'm so looking forward to sharing this with you. She has become a close friend of mine over the last couple years, and we actually co-wrote a song called It's Not a Wasted Life based on her son's journey with brain injury and also just the brain injury community as a whole. And so we're going to share about more of that in the intro. So I don't want to spoil it for you here, or we're going to share more about it in the interview. Share about it in the interview. I don't want to spoil it in the intro, so you got to keep listening to hear about that. But I do want to say that with our Hope for Families, as part of Hope Survives, family is a huge part of our mission and a huge part of our programs and a huge part of what we do and why we do it. And so if you visit hopesurvives.org, I'm so excited to share about our upcoming programs that can help families navigate brain injury together. We have a Hope for Couples group, we have a Hope for Families group, and we have more programs coming next year in 2026. And I'm so excited. So I know sometimes people find our podcast later. So if you're listening now in the present when this episode's releasing, you can check out our upcoming workshops. But if you're listening in the future, we have so many more things planned. And I'm just so grateful every single day that we get to do this, that we get to walk alongside of families going through brain injury, because it doesn't just happen to the injured person, it happens to everyone. And we want to approach it with hope. We want to approach it with encouragement. And we want you to know you're not alone. And that's the heart behind today's conversation with Lindy. So I guess that's all I had to say here in the intro. I just want to thank you for being part of our community. If you'd like to donate or get involved or check out more of what we're doing, we have volunteer positions open. And we're just so thankful for our community and how we're growing. We also want to thank our podcast sponsor, the Functional Neurology Center. Their personalized neuro recovery programs offer hope for those suffering from brain injuries, dysautonomia, vestibular, chronic pain, stroke, movement dysfunction, developmental disorders, PPPD, FND, and complex post-concussion. We're so grateful to Dr. Schmo and the team over at the Functional Neurology Center. You can find more about them at thefnc.com. And we're so thrilled that we can share hope together. So let's get into today's conversation on hope for families. It's not a wasted life. I just can't wait to share this. So thanks for listening, and let's go forward. Lindy, welcome back to Hope Survives podcast. It's so good to have you.
Hello. Hi. Good to see you again, my friend.
So Lindy was on our podcast last year, and you shared some of your story, and it was so amazing. Was it just last year? It had to have been. Or was it 2 years ago?
No, I
I
think
can't remember.
it was in the spring. So it was like a year and a half ago, I think.
Okay.
Wasn't it
Yes,
around
it
Brain
must
Injury
have been.
Awareness Month, around March or something like that?
Yes, that feels right. So
Mm-hmm.
since then, I have been to California and seen
Again.
your nonprofit, Ryan's Reach, up close
Mm-hmm.
twice, which has
Yes.
been such a blessing. And we have developed a friendship. So we talk a lot. And to do it recorded here today is a totally, different thing to be speaking to the listeners here, but also
Yeah,
so comfortable to be talking to my friend. So thank you, Lindy,
that's
for being
right.
here.
I know it is meant to be. We have forged a great friendship and we have similar passions. And so I'm just delighted that I've gotten to know you like I have.
I feel the same way. So, last
Mm-hmm.
time you were on the podcast, you shared some of your story of your family's journey with brain injury. Would you just give a short recap for those who maybe didn't get a chance to listen to that
Sure.
episode yet?
Absolutely. My story started in 2001, and that was when my oldest son, Ryan, had a terrible accident stepping on a skylight on the roof of his apartment building. So he incurred a traumatic brain injury from a 3-story fall, and it was very serious. It was life-threatening, and it started us on a very long journey that continues today, but we went through a very long coma. We went through the highs and lows of seizures. He did not have a voice for a very long time. Um, he couldn't talk. So, he started getting words, but no voice under it. You know how weak a person can be at being in bed all the time, and he couldn't get any voice out. So that was, a milestone. And getting the feeding tube out, he was able to finally start eating. Eating and speaking were the big milestones for us to know he's able to communicate, able to enjoy food. And yet, it was over a series of many years. And so it's definitely been a lot of pain, a lot of tears, a lot of suffering. And for a woman that was living a charmed life up until that point, I was 45 years old and really had not experienced any major upset in my life until then. It was the beginning of me learning what God can do in the midst of that.
Mm. Thank you for sharing, Lindy. And on the
Hmm.
last episode, you shared how this not only just impacted Ryan and his himself as being the one who sustained the traumatic brain injury, but also your entire family. Can you share a little bit
Hmm.
about the journey
Yeah.
that your family went through and Ryan's siblings?
Yes. At first, the focus is on the person who got injured. And I have three kids. So Ryan is the oldest, and everybody had to kind of rally around what was going on with Ryan. But it did happen not just to him, but it happened to me and Ryan's dad, my husband, who is Ryan's stepdad, and just the extended family and Ryan's uh, sisters. He has two sisters. I have a daughter with my first marriage and Ryan, and then he has another half sister and he has a brother, Tyler. And every one of us were impacted in different ways. And I kind of thought it was, uh, you know, nobody had a right to pay attention to their own pain. They had to kind of focus in on, let's get Ryan to back to awareness because he was not able to do, say anything. We didn't know if he had consciousness for such a long time. But eventually, all that trauma starts coming out in other parts of the family. And it definitely gave my daughter a depletion of her adrenals. And years later, she kind of collapsed and needed to move home for quite a while she rebuilt her health. And my son, Tyler, he went through a lot of rebellion at first and then slipped into drug addiction and had to go through the whole process of sobriety. And, in my mind, I think what would have happened with those two other children if Ryan hadn't fallen through the skylight. But of course, I think it's all connected. We're all reacting in different ways. And the mother that they had that used to be smiling a lot and very happy-go-lucky. I mean, it changed me for that period of time. And they not only were missing their brother, they were in some ways missing their mother, who was grieving and um, hurting so badly, and they didn't know quite how to handle that. My husband, um, he was my rock throughout. My husband, who was not Ryan's dad, but he showed up and just took a lot of the bullets, talking. He and Ryan's dad would go talk to the doctors and they would say, Lindy, you don't go in the room. We'll tell you what he says, because they knew they needed to kind of filter it a little bit to give me a chance to see hope in that. And so I was really grateful to the both of them for that. But then Ryan moved home after 10 months of being in different facilities. He moved in with Mike and me, my husband now. And he lived with us under the same roof until just a year ago. And our lives had, a lot of therapists coming and going, a lot of caregivers. I mean, he has caregivers round the clock still, and the therapists as well. And so our lives was turned into something that we weren't expecting to have, and we weren't prepared for. But thank God that I was gifted with someone like Mike, who is a steady, steady guy who understood the legalities of things, understood the business and the money side of things. Honestly, I don't know what I would have done. And of course, he was there and helping take care of Ryan.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all of that. So it affected the whole family. And when you started to
Mm-hmm.
speak there, you said something like the injury didn't just happen to Ryan, but it happened to all of us in its own
Mm-hmm.
way.
Yeah.
And that is a key piece of brain injury that often gets missed, especially
Mm-hmm.
when the person with the brain injury is in this either the acute stages or even when they're going to outpatient and they are navigating through all this. This didn't just happen to them, it happened to
Mm-hmm.
everyone. And
Yeah.
so what encouragement would you give to any families that are maybe in the beginning stages of trying to figure this out and feeling like they don't know where their hope is, and how would you encourage them to navigate this?
Mm. Well, with my daughter, she was trying to be brave and strong, and she is a brave and strong person. She was an athlete and a college, cross country runner, and she was used to just pushing herself through difficulties when it comes to, the gunshot goes off and out and running, and that was her personality. And then this explosion, I always felt like it's like an explosion goes off, and you do triage and you see who is the most hurt and you focus in there, which was Ryan. And then I think I took second place. Everybody was concerned for me, his mom. Jessie tried to be there and be strong for us, and she certainly didn't want to be a burden. And when she started to feel her body, in her very body, all the emotions were kind of like stopped right here where she wouldn't talk about it. And she even developed throat pain, like neck pain. It was like she was not voicing what was going on inside. So I would say to any sibling, any family member, don't try to be a hero and talk and express, because Jessie, I think, thought because I'm her mother, I would just know what she was holding back. And not everybody is an intuitive person like she is. So she thought, well, I can kind of read people. Well, I need more of a explicit verbal communication. And over time, I've gotten better at reading her and knowing the signals. But she tried so hard to not add to the pain that she just felt total despondence. Like, my mom isn't there to catch me. And I was so relieved when she did move home. I could be with her. I could really focus on her at that point. Years had gone by. Ryan was still in the house, but I could take time to really focus on her. And so I would say that. As far as Tyler goes, I I tried to be there for him, but I kept thinking, well, I have to be with Ryan, and there's other members of the family that can take Tyler to soccer practice and be there for him. He had to. He's a more closed book as well. Of all three of my kids, Ryan was the one who could talk to me the best, and he had no voice. It was very frustrating
Oh,
because my other two kids, not as verbal as Ryan, not as willing to just put it all out on the table. So again, I'd say with Tyler as well, any member of the family should try to, don't hesitate to get therapy. Go and talk with somebody about it. And what you're going through is so unique compared to most of the people in the world. I remember sitting down in therapy with the whole, nuclear family, and this therapist said, nobody knows what your mother's going through. You can't judge her because very few people have been in the situation of, in my case, I needed to be in Bakersfield to be with Ryan for a year, and I would drive home on the weekends. And in a way, it felt to others in the family that I was neglecting Tyler, who was still a young teenager, but I could not figure how to clone myself. And I was doing the best I could. And I didn't want any of those three to suffer, but everybody was suffering. And so therapy is good, but also a non judgmental take on your loved ones, because you need each other. And so many families do fall apart during a crisis such as what we've been through, because it's intense. And sometimes people feel like you're doing it wrong. And so to the extent you can not point fingers and you can give grace and go let a good therapist maybe help you through some of those conversations, I would recommend that. And of course, I'm leaving out and I shouldn't, praying. Fall on your knees and ask the great communicator, the great physician, to arbitrate and allow you to find love in these situations where you might be feeling anger. Um, that's number one.
I love the way you phrased that, to allow you to find love in the situations you may be feeling anger, because it's complex. The emotions are complex. And at Hope Survives, family is part of our mission statement, because we did not want to create resources that were only about the person with the brain injury, because it does happen to the whole family and the whole family is journeying it together. And so
Mhm.
being able to have that perspective of everybody's story matters.
Yeah.
Every single person in the family has a brain injury story. It's not just
Mhm.
the person who had the injury. And so, Lindy, how have
Absolutely.
you found this experience? Now, you're decades out from this, right? So you
Mhm.
can look back and have a perspective that someone who's in the first couple years may not be able to see. But are there ways that you can look back and see how you have grown as a mother, how you have grown, how your family has grown through this experience?
Yes. I used to think that being a Christian, if you did it all right, there's protection, a dome of protection over you. I think that's changed in my life. I feel that um, the promises that he will never leave you or forsake you. But sometimes you walk through some dark and painful moments, and that's life. And I had to learn how to go through day by day, not knowing what the outcome was going to be, knowing exactly what I wanted the outcome to be, but praying for grace to make it through one more day. And I think that as I started to stay more present to this day and not to the whole outcome, I stopped being so focused on outcome and started being focused on what joy is there in this day? What overcoming was there today? What can I be grateful for right now? And I think that the more you do that, the more you don't miss. There's an awful lot of ways God shows up in your life. And I look back and go, I am amazed that I am a stable, smiling, joyful person that lived that. I look back on, I don't think about it all the time like I used to, but I look back and I go, I would have predicted I wouldn't survive that. It was tumultuous because once you start feeling like things are going a little steady, something else would happen. 2 years after Ryan's accident and he started to get his voice back, just started to get words coming out. All of a sudden, he developed some very severe behavior, which is also often part of brain injury. And that was a whole new wound because I only expected Ryan to come back to us the way he was, that the words coming out of his mouth would be the same words I used to hear. But with brain injury, a lot of people that are listening probably can relate. Inhibition, editing, all of that is impacted. And he would say things that were shocking to this mother who was raised in a very, no cuss words in the house. And all of a sudden, I'm hearing it every day. So it's like a new challenge. And so I started to have to learn that I am not in control. And the sooner I can realize that I'm not able to fix him, but I can infuse him with love. I can accept this version of Ryan and adore him. That was part of me getting healthier instead of needing an outcome, which would be him just like he was. I started to go, okay, Lord, grow me into a more loving person, grow me into a person that accepts my life as it is. And in that way, I'm able to really reach out and help more people that need to learn how to do that too.
Yeah, and you've helped so many people, Lindy, not only inspired through just your life and your songs that you've been sharing, which we'll get to, but also through Ryan's Reach, which is your nonprofit. And what has
Mhm,
always strikes me about what you do through Ryan's Reach, creating group homes for those with brain injuries, is that you created something that your family didn't need yourself, but you thought
mhm,
to yourself, if we didn't have the resources we had, Ryan wouldn't have anywhere to go. And you
mhm.
created these homes for others. And that to me, that is so beautiful because you were not operating out of a place of this is something we need. So we're going to make it. You said, we don't need this, but other people will. So how can I
Mhm.
help them? And like, I admire you so much for that. Can you talk a little bit
Mhm.
about the group homes and Ryan's Reach and how you've been able to just share love and hope with others going through brain injury?
I really do feel like it was a Holy Spirit compulsion. Um, the love for God and for Ryan was the impetus for saying, this can't be just the way I mean, there has to be a deeper meaning and a deeper purpose behind all of it. And I couldn't create it, but all the love and the outpouring that our family got because of my dad being a celebrity, it just warmed my heart so much. And I thought, well, what about the people who they're anonymous, you know, they're going through this and they don't have people from around the world sending you emails saying we're praying for Ryan and we had a lot of blessing. And it just I think that when you're blessed, we're to take that blessing and I know that at the time we were attending Saddleback, and Rick Warren always had a phrase, we're blessed to be a blessing. And I think I was living that. It was like, okay, I didn't want this to happen to Ryan, but I could see the blessings that we had that other families did not have. The fact that he got a settlement and a lifetime settlement. It was like, okay, whatever he's going to need to take care of him, his settlement is going to cover that. Okay, that left Mike and I available to not be his caregivers. So, were we just going to go about living our lives normal? No, it did not feel like that was what we were to do. We were to offer what we had and just whatever we're learning and whatever we have, we wanted to offer it. And I just feel like it's the story of the little boy with the fishes and the loaves. I mean, here I'm broken. I don't have a lot, but if you can use this platform we've been given, if you can use these two lives that are hurting to do something to benefit other people, that made sense to me. And so we started Ryan's Reach and we just started raising money and trying to figure out where the money would go from the fundraisers. And eventually it just became clear over the years that the people that had loved ones that were young, they didn't belong in nursing homes. And around our area, at least, there wasn't much else. If the mother and father couldn't take care of them themselves, they would end up in a place with a lot of people much, much older and infirmed. And I just thought, boy, I'm so glad Ryan lives at home with me because we're pushing him towards more recovery. We're not doing bare minimum. We want to see what we can do to bring him back as much as possible. And so starting Ryan's Reach and the two group homes, that's been the overriding vision, is to make it as much like being home as possible. Of course, there's 4 or 5 brain injured people in the same home, which is different, but with a loving, caring staff, with parents being able to come and go as they please, being in a nice neighborhood, planning outings so that they're not just always home with nothing to do. And the parents can work on getting their therapy, and we try to give a little extra anytime we can. But it still feels awful small, Cristabelle. I still feel in my heart we've birthed an idea, and we've got the template of how to do it, and I just feel it needs to be multiplied. More multiplication of the loaves and fishes, if you will.
Well, and that's what the Lord does, right? Like we give the
Yeah,
offering
that's
and God does the results. So,
exactly.
yeah. That's
Hmm.
beautiful, Lindy. Thank you for sharing. And it's so interesting you brought up that story of the loaves and fishes because I was literally just listening to a podcast and they were talking about that same thing. And my friend also brought up that same story recently. So that's just so cool how that all
Yeah,
comes together. But
yeah,
I want to talk a little bit about this song.
yeah.
It's Not a Wasted Life. So I'm going to share my perspective and then I want you to share your perspective. So,
Okay.
Lindy asked me to fly out to Orange County, California in summer 2024, last year, to do a concert
Hmm.
for the residents of the group homes, as well as local brain injury support, as well as doing an event at a church. And I did a couple of things there. And so my sister and I flew out, and I came with my guitar and I came to do this concert. And Lindy, being the kindest, sweetest person in the whole world, is like picked us up from the airport and was driving us around. And we were in the car. And I remember this.
Yeah.
And Lindy, we were just chatting, and she's like, "Well, I started writing this song." And, I said, I'd love to hear it. You're like, "You want me to sing it for you now?" I'm like, "Yeah, you sing it, please."
Hmm.
And so you sang the first verse and first chorus of It's Not a Wasted Life, this song you had started writing about your son's brain injury. And I had tears in my eyes. I was so moved in that moment. And I'm like, "Lindy, you
Yeah.
have to finish this song."
Yeah.
And you said, "Well, that's really all I have." And I was like, "I'm here. Would you be open to me helping?" Like it
Yeah.
resonated so deeply with me because I've lived the brain injury experience. And
Experience.
so before we left California, you and myself and my sister Genevieve sat down and we finished this song together, and then we got
Yeah.
to record it in Nashville, and now it's released. And so it's just been such an amazing joy, and we're going to talk more about like the lyrics and some of the things behind the song, but I want to have you share from your perspective. Before you sang it to me in the car, where did the title come from? I already know the answer to this, so I'm
Yeah.
excited
Yeah.
for you to share, but tell our listeners where the title came from and the inspiration.
Well, you also know that I wrote a song called Word Layer, and that was like the year before that came out. And once a song was out, I started having people say, "What's next, Lindy?" Or "You should write a song about this." And one of our group home administrators said, "Lindy, you need to write a song for Ryan's Reach." And I chuckle because the first song was, I thought, a fluke, and it was amazing that it turned out good and that we got to record it. And I love the
It's
song.
so not a fluke. You're so talented.
But it still made me chuckle that people would say, "You should write a song about this. You should write." And I was like in my late 60s going, I've never written a song before, Word Layer. But I started to feel like, well, let me not write it off out of hand. Let me think what it would be. And all of a sudden, one day I was remembering this evening when I went in to say prayers with Ryan. And I would go every night and we would pray, and often it would be kind of the same kind of interaction I would have repetitively. But I was thanking the Lord for his life. Thank you, Lord, for Ryan's life. And he said, "You're thanking God for me?" Like it was a surprise. I said, "Honey, I thank God for you every day, multiple times." And then he said, "It's not a wasted life." He said it so clearly, and it was out of the ordinary from our normal conversation. It's not a wasted life. And that was the Ryan I know coming through. Ryan was a deep thinker and a very committed believer. And I heard that it's not a wasted life coming out of his mouth. Remember, I never even heard a word out of him for 15 months after his accident. And now he's thinking something that profound. So, anyway, I carried that for 10 years before somebody suggested I write a song. for Ryan's Reach. And that moment came to my mind. I said, that's the title. And then I started to tell a personal accounting of what happened in the first verse. And it was kind of a somber, eerie kind of thing because it's not a happy, moment in my life. But the chorus is more of a declaration of what Ryan said. It's not a wasted life. And we have to change our point of view in order to see that, because it's so natural to feel like, oh, all the hopes. And I mean, he was just gonna get married. He was gonna have a family. He was just starting off in a career. So it could feel like a wasted life, but it absolutely is not.
Yeah, and that's so beautiful. And one of the things you say, it's not a wasted life. If you change your point of view, it's where courage can be born and faith can learn to soar and trust can be the door that you walk through. And oh
Hmm.
man, I mean, that's kind of the heart of Hope Survives, and that's just the heart of what
Hmm.
we do. And that doesn't happen instantaneously. I think this
No.
song is a journey. The song shows the journey. And some of the lines that we worked on together, adding in things about the setbacks and the worrying and the
Yeah.
missing out on normal things
Yes. Yes.
and feeling like, everybody else that doesn't have brain injury in their world has this normalcy to their life. And when you
Hmm.
live with brain injury, your entire family's world is filtered through this lens of,
Hmm.
is this possible for our family? Or
Hmm.
seeing other people move forward and do things. We
Yeah.
also talked about anxiety and having trouble sleeping,
Losing
but one of
sleep.
my
Yeah.
losing sleep, yes, losing sleep, but one of my favorite parts that we wrote together was the bridge. We wrote it
Yeah.
together that day,
Yeah.
and it says, "And though your heart will break, there's a difference you can make. When it's broken, it can
Hmm.
open, puts compassion into motion, and at the heartbreak leads to compassion." And then I want to have you
Hmm.
talk about this next part, but it says, "Life comes from the wound, from the
Yeah.
pain flows something new. With tears, we
Hmm.
see a little clearer. To the hurting, we draw nearer." And when we wrote that, I mean, it just felt so right. And
Yes. Yes.
just so, can you talk a little bit about just the heart behind
Yeah.
those words, life coming from the wound, and what that really
Hmm.
means?
Yeah. Well, again, it's a bit of the same picture of the heart being broken, but it's through that broken heart that something is going to be able to flow through you that hasn't been able to before. And I think that's empathy, that's understanding, and to the hurting we draw nearer, we're able to relate. And I think that people like us, when we're going through it, we think, you don't understand. You haven't been through this. But when we can come alongside somebody who is hurting to this degree, we do understand. And it gives us this ability to not come in with all the right words, but just to, I've used this with you before. I feel like I was allowed to get closer to God through this horrendous many months and years with Ryan. And I felt like I was admitted to a more intimate place with him, to where I could feel so close. I could feel the calm heartbeat of God. I was allowed that, where before I was not aware it was possible to be so close and to feel he's not panicked by the situation like I am. I need to get my heart in tune and aligned with that slower, calmer heartbeat. And when I go in and I can be, or I take a phone call from somebody who's new to this, I pray, Lord, let them feel my calm heartbeat. Let me be a calming presence to people that are like, they're just, the adrenaline is through the roof. But I think when you can stand as an example of survival and you can tell your story, and it is every bit as difficult and trying and even ongoing, um, then I think that that offers people hope that they will smile again. Their heart rate will come down. They'll learn how to navigate TBI. And there is a lot of recovery possible, but that's not something I can promise. I can say I approve of trying everything that you can, and, I understand that. But also, I've seen God show up and sustain a woman who's and more than one, women, mothers, and fathers that have lost their loved one after brain injury. And even after a few years of recovery, something happens and they lose the battle. But we all lose this, being alive is terminal. It's just, we're all going to go through that at some point. And so it's really, for me now, I hold on to this life a whole lot with a lighter grip. And I do try to keep that higher point of view. And now my days start with more serenity, more quiet, more um, contemplative mindset with God. And I can start my day and say, okay, what do you have for me to do today? I have a plan, but what's your plan? And I am very open to being interrupted and seeing the moments in my days now that are the most meaningful are conversations I was not expecting to have. Um, and just feeling like this was an appointment where I was able to hear a need and be present to it. And that's a transformation in me. And so pain and suffering is an opportunity to grow, go deeper, and understand other people's pain and suffering. When you've had a charmed life, it's very hard to relate to somebody who's hurting.
You're such an incredible example of that. And just the compassion pours out of you. And I'm just so grateful to know you, not only through brain injury, but also as my friend. And I'm so thankful that we were able to work on this song together. It's such a joy. And the song is out now. So there's a lyric video on YouTube that you can
Yes,
watch.
thank you,
And
Cristabelle.
I did make the lyric video.
A woman of
Uh,
many talents,
I
many.
it's a creative outlet for me. That's a side thing. I don't even know if I've ever talked about that on the podcast. But yes, I do love to make lyric videos. And I was entrusted by Lindy to make this one, and you can watch it. We'll link it below as well. You can listen to it on Spotify or Apple Music. And we hope that the song just comforts your heart and helps you to know that nothing is wasted, that
Yeah,
there's purpose through all of it. So, as we're closing here, Lindy, this episode is going to be called Hope for Family. It's Not a Wasted Life. And in Hope Survives, we have a group called Hope for Family, where family
mm,
members can meet together and talk. And everybody's story is different. But I would love
mhm,
to have you close with some words of hope for families. What does
yeah.
that hope for family mean to you?
I look at what we've walked through. The darkest year was when Ryan was in Bakersfield, and my daughter thought that I wasn't showing up, and my son Tyler was drifting into drugs and disrespect and rebellion. And I felt like I lost all three of my kids. I felt like here I am, all I've ever wanted to be as a mother. I didn't have a career, and I identified as a mom. And I felt like Ryan can't talk to me. Jesse is mad at me. Tyler is totally aloof. And those were some of my darkest moments. But today I can talk to Ryan and he can hug me and say, I love you. And he's communicative. I get hugs. My daughter and I are so good. Uh, she's learned to talk to me. I've learned to read her better. And we speak more of a common language now. I always thought we had a good relationship before, but this Ryan's accident kind of shone a light on where we were missing some things. And I am so proud of her. I always tell people I want to be like her when I grow up. I don't know when that's going to happen, but and then my son Tyler, oh, oh, how he broke my heart with his descent into drug use. And I just prayed, Lord, can't lose another son. I can't lose a son to another brain problem. I looked at them as both having issues with their brains. And just praying every day. There was, again, it was a helplessness. It was not going to be up to me. It was up to God bringing him to where he needed to be to accept his addiction and to make amazing decisions towards his own recovery. And all I'm saying is, your darkest days, don't believe that that's going to always be that way. I just got the best hug from my son, who wrote me a 2-page typed letter of amends, and I didn't know how much I needed that. But I have been on a cloud. And the hug I got from that boy, who's now a 38-year-old father of his own, and how he understands now that he's a father. Let me just tell you, hang in there. Wait for the blessings, because they are bigger than you can imagine. Sorry, I get choked up because I am so appreciative of my life right now.
That's hope. That is
It is.
hope right there. And that's so
Yeah.
beautiful. So, Lindy, thank you for spending your time with us. And if you would like to get in touch with her social media is Lindy Boone Music, at Lindy Boone Music. We will tag you. We will share your song. And thank you for spending time with us here at Hope Survives. If any of you listeners have questions for Lindy or something comes up, you can email us hi@hopesurvives.org. We will be glad to pass along any messages you would have for her. So thank you again, Lindy, for coming here.
Thank
And
you
I love
again.
you, and we will talk
I love
soon,
you
of
too.
course. Thank you to our listeners
Okay.
for hanging in with us for this whole episode, and we're so glad that you are here, and there is always hope.
Yes.
Thanks for tuning in to Hope Survives podcast. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned, and would love for you to consider leaving us a rating or a review. Check out hopesurvives.org for more. We'll see you next time, and remember, there is always hope.